Përshëndetje përsëri faktikisht. Patëm probleme teknike në mëngjes, kështu që bëjmë këtë speechin tim përsëri tash në 2:50. Pra, unë jam Sadi dhe dua të kërkoj ndjes se këtë ligjëratën do e bëj në anglisht, pasi kam probleme në shprehi në shqip, se kam goxha kohë që se përdor gjuhën shqipe. So, to introduce myself, my name is Sadi Qevani. Currently, I work in Berlin as a JavaScript / blockchain / DApp developer, and right now, but before I was working as a lead JavaScript engineer in Japan, and today I'm going to talk about blockchain. So a lot of people have a bit of misconception to what blockchain is. They usually attribute blockchain to cryptocurrencies, and this talk it's not about cryptocurrencies. So blockchain, forget everything you know about blockchain and Bitcoin. Blockchain, we are not going to talk about the economic aspect of cryptocurrencies, but mainly about the distributed ledger technology that it's basically blockchain, and cryptocurrencies are just a use case in the blockchain environment community. So blockchain is not Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is it's powered by blockchain. To me, and I believe like blockchain, think of it as a set of protocol that, if followed by the majority, creates trust in a trustless environment. So, how to translate that? If you have several parties that, let's say banks, that they need to share data between them within without being able to manipulate it, blockchain makes possible through its protocols to have a single state source of truth based on different algorithms, which are proof of work, proof of stake, and depending on how you configure your blockchain, it has, let's say, maximum security. For example, in this case, we have Bitcoin, and then you have maximum composability. You can say like Ethereum in this case, where they have smart contracts, and blockchain doesn't have this kind of smart contracts. They have simple scripts. So 30 years ago, the internet made the world kind of more connected, and I believe that now blockchain is gonna start a new change where it's gonna make the world a bit more open. So currently, the low level, the first layer is just the blockchain. The second layer of the blockchain, the distributed ledger technology, it's our smart contracts. For me, smart contracts is really a stupid name, because those are neither smart nor there are contracts. They are simple scripts that you usually compile, you deploy on the blockchain, you get a hash, and you can execute. But the community in Ethereum kind of so the community in Ethereum coined the term smart contracts because back then there was this smartphone, smart things, blah blah blah. So they came up with smart contracts as a way for marketing, but in the end they are simple pieces of software, scripts that gets executed every time somebody makes a transaction. So the way I want you to think of smart contracts is in normal web development, you have the front end, you have the back end, and you have the database. So in the front end, you build client-side applications. In the back end, you have this Node.js, a PHP server. And smart contracts can fit in the back end. Basically, they are business logic that communicates between client-side applications and back-end and the blockchain. And the blockchain itself is just a big, over-glorified database. So, like I said before, smart contracts get compiled to bytecode, and you deploy them on the blockchain, and they have a specific public interface that you can call to execute specific functions and manipulate the blockchain state. So the nice thing about the smart contracts is that everybody, it doesn't matter who creates it. So if I create a smart contract and I publish it online and I decide in this room to give 1% of, let's say, all the tokens that I've created in these smart contracts, then everybody in this room is going to be an owner of that kind of contract, an owner of the value of that the contract creates. And that value can be transmitted and shared across everybody. As long as you have internet, you have your public and private key, and you can broadcast the transaction. So this is, but smart contracts, like, it doesn't matter if they're smart or stupid. If there's no kind of interface to interact with them, they're kind of useless, because it's really hard to actually, after you have deployed the contract, it's really hard to change, modify, or even know what the actual public interface is. So when you publish a contract, you have to have the bytecode and also the contract source code, so you can see the public available functions. Now, this is where like DApps come in. DApps, like at the beginning, when I was like researching about what they were, how they work, why are they called DApps and not apps, and I kind of came to the realization that they're normal apps. The only thing that they have is that a different kind of UX, or kind of a different way to think of the system. So in a normal web app, you will have the authentication. You will have somebody sign up in your application, and you will send all the records into the database, and then after that, the person will log in. But with a DApp, that doesn't exist, because every user will has a public and private key, and that allows him to create, commit transactions, or modify his specific address instance. So one thing that I really hate about the blockchain community is that they simply invent new names for old kind of patterns, ideas, and they make things a bit more confusing. So, so to build a DApp, you need to know 4 things, in my opinion. First is you need to understand a bit how public and private key works. So the idea of public key cryptography is that you have this private key that generates a public key that if you encrypt a message and then you send the message to somebody, and with your public key, he has the ability to verify that that message is yours. And this is actually a really powerful feature, especially with decentralized applications. The second thing you need is a wallet provider. Wallet provider is so a wallet provider is just basically a nice term to say for where you store your keys, your public and your private keys. And there's several ones. There's local, like paper-based wallets, online wallets. MetaMask is, for example, a Chrome extension wallet, and this allows decentralized applications to communicate with the blockchain. So the flow will be: I go to a DApp, and I have my account in MetaMask, and I will want to let's say transfer one Ethereum coin to another to another party, and then this let's say DApp makes it possible to transfer. So when I click in a button that to allow it to take my funds, what I'm basically doing is I'm saying to MetaMask, here is the transaction message that I've created. Please sign it for me. It's like, imagine the check. So if I give you a blank check without my signature, you cannot cash it out. But if I give you a check with my signature and the amount of money, you can go to any bank and cash it out. The same thing applies in decentralized applications and wallets that make this possible. And so MetaMask is a really bad UX in my opinion, because it's a Chrome extension that has almost no security, and like I believe that in the future it's gonna be more. In the future, it's gonna browser vendors are gonna implement by default smart contracts, wallets in the browser itself, in your mobile phones, in the computers. So you don't have to worry about installing wallets or anything like that. And the other thing is basically SDKs. Most of the blockchains provide you with SDKs, and if they don't have SDKs, they're gonna give you some. They're gonna have a public interface. Okay, so one thing is like I want to talk about this one use case, because I think I'm a bit out of time. I think I have over-exaggerated with the content in here. And so one use case I really am fan of, it's Brave Browser. Brave Browser implements this kind of system by default. So their whole concept is privacy, and they implemented an ERC20 token. ERC20 token in their browser, so it's called BAT, Basic Attention Token. With this token, you can use it to tip other people. To publishers can use the token to actually advertise on the platform, and by this you can also get a piece of the advertisement. If you're viewing the advertisement, you have the ability to actually get, let's say, 10% of the earnings, because in a way you're doing the job, because you're viewing the ad, and at the same time you can tip content creators. So they want to create this sustainable environment where users, publishers, and content creators can benefit and no one is kind of a loser in this system. And there was some other extra use cases, but I'm gonna skip them. And what I want you to get from this talk is basically that blockchain is not Bitcoin, it's not cryptocurrency, it's a more powerful tool that in the next 10, 20 years is gonna be implemented in many different aspects of our lives. There's already research being, I'm actually involved in some research from Turin University that they're trying to implement a blockchain-based system for citizens to help grow their city, to give suggestions to how to make use of public spaces, and to give reviews. And they're making a complex system built on top of blockchain. So blockchain, cryptocurrencies is just one use case of blockchain, and blockchain it's gonna affect. It's like to me, blockchain, the way I see it right now, it's like the internet in the 90s. Nobody had any clue what the internet was. People were putting GIFs in, sorry for the offense, everybody. People were putting GIFs in the websites, marquee text, flashing things, and now 30 years later, you see there's Facebook, Google, Amazon, trillion-dollar companies. The same is going to be available. I think it's going to grow in the next 10, 20 years. So, and then things to look forward is, like, if you are interested in building DApps, it's not rocket science. You just need to know a bit of, the language you are using it, get the SDK from the blockchain, and then just start interacting with it. And thank you guys.